Welcome. We'll start with the second part for the AIIMs GK. In the last part, we have talked about the questions that had appeared in the previous year's papers and some of the important updates from science and tech section. As we said, in AIIMs GK, the major focus is on the developments that have taken place in the science. So, we'll be continuing with that series and looking on to some of the other major developments that are very important for you. Now the first is Medwatch. Now Medwatch is an innovative mobile health app that has been launched by Indian Air Force. It's mainly to provide healthcare information to the Air Force warriors and provide a kind of timely immunization to their children that would be covered under Mission Indradhanush. So those are some of the important highlights of this. The next is Nano capsules can now act as drug carriers. So these nano of the power of 10 raised to power minus 9 would be able to diagnose and deliver information and medicines to the person. The next is CARB-X. Very important. CARB-X, the acronym itself is important. It's basically combating antibiotic resistance biopharmaceutical accelerator. Now this grant has been asked to develop antibiotics. The idea is to treat all the hospital acquired infections. So any infections that have been acquired from the hospital would be treated under or would be treated by this CARB-X, and this has been a project by a Bengaluru firm in India, and therefore it's very important. The development is important. Again, when we talk about bacteria, we classify them as gram positive bacteria and gram negative bacteria. We have a detailed lecture on gram positive and gram negative bacteria, so you can refer that for details. The next is artificial intelligence. In the recent years, we have seen that the role and the applications of artificial intelligence have been increased. So benefits of those are definitely important, and this would be something that we would be discussing throughout the lecture, the recent developments in AI in different fields. The next is fast breeder reactors in India. Now Kalpakkam is one of the plants where you have the fast breeder reactor that has been installed. Now this has been brought about with research and development on sodium cooled technology that has been used for last 30 years, and therefore it's important. The next is artificial silk, very important. This has been developed by University of Cambridge. However, 98% is water, which is in the form of hydrogel, and only 2% in the form of silica and cellulose that would be part of it, and it would form a kind of artificial silk which would be of the spider silk, or which would be similar to a spider networking or a web. The next is the first solar storage power plant in India would be set up in Andaman in Port Blair. Now why this has been chosen? Because it's one of the most popular tourist destinations, and therefore the first experiment would be done here in Port Blair in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. The next is Urja Ganga. Now there could be a direct question, what is Urja Ganga? So Urja Ganga is one of the ambitious gas pipeline projects starting in Varanasi, Uttar Pradesh. Now it would benefit 7 of the major East India cities. Those are Varanasi, Jamshedpur, Patna, Ranchi, Kolkata, Bhubaneswar and Cuttack. So name of these cities and the idea of Urja Ganga is important. The next is together with the National Skill Development Corporation, Google India has launched a mobile app for improving the mobile developers ecosystem, and therefore it's important. It would work both on iOS and Android. The next is solar flares of high intensity have been recorded. Now what are solar flares? Solar flares are basically episodes of increased solar activity that could be seen on the surface of the sun, and it basically increases the brightness level. So NASA has recently recorded these flares. The next is how we can produce methanol using oxygen in the air. Now this could be done through a simple process of catalysis, that is speeding up the reaction. This was done by in the Cardiff University in UK, and it basically the methanol that has been made is known as methyl alcohol, and this would allow the production at low temperature and would use oxygen and hydrogen peroxide. So those two things would be used to produce methanol. And why methanol is very important recently? The methanol is very important important recently because of the fact that it is more cleaner and it provides or helps in a greener environment or a kind of sustainable environment that we talk about. The next is the windy Venus is being revealed for the first time, and it's basically seen in the night sky of the Venus, and therefore it's very, very important. The things that have been taken into consideration for the observation are by the visible and the infrared thermal imaging spectrometer developed by European Space Agency. The next is artificial intelligence system. So initially we talked about general implications and the increase in the artificial intelligence. Now here we would see some of the cases where it has been applied. So artificial intelligence can now predict Alzheimer's disease. The disease so far was not being accurately predicted, and with the help of AI, that's artificial intelligence, algorithm could be developed which would help in early diagnosis of the disease. The next is a new test has been developed for checking out the onset diseases in the childhood, and there could be nearly 193 diseases that could be detected. And what is the name of the test is very, very important. It is semaphore natalis. So what is semaphore natalis could be a very direct question for you. So make sure you are very well aware of this terminology, because there could be a direct question on this terminology. And it basically includes early detection of diseases which lead to muscle atrophy, which causes epilepsy and cancer. The next is, for the cancer research, there has been a new non-invasive method for chemotherapy that has been brought about. So chemotherapy basically is a drugs that are used to kill the cancer cells, but they also affect the vasculature of the tumor that is being present, and the new technology would be non-invasive and it would not affect the vasculature. The next is, plastic has been converted to petroleum and bioglue. So this is a very, very important discovery. The idea has been led by the Indian Institute of Petroleum along with GAIL India Limited. What has been done is polyethylene and polypropylene has been taken, and these have been converted into petroleum and diesel. So waste from the plastic could be converted into petroleum and diesel, and also as bioglue, which is very strong and has good flexibility. So that's again important. The next is solar minimum, a very important finding that has been done by physicist Dan Lubin. The idea is by 2050 we would have the sun that would be 7% much more cooler and dimmer than today. So we can expect a mini ice age by 2050. So that has been an idea that has been propounded by Dan Lubin, and it basically talks about the changes in the solar minima and solar maxima, which is a 11-year cycle, and by 2050 we can expect a grand minimum phase. So that's again very, very important. Very important topic to remember. The next is TRAPPIST-1. TRAPPIST-1 is a faint red star that has been discovered, and this star basically is nearly 40 light years away from the earth, but we have discovered water in that region. So that's again an important discovery. The next is gelators. So gelators are basically a cost-effective method to recover the marine oil. So wherever you have oil-water mixture, with the help of gelator, which are basically hydrophobic and oleophilic, you can extract oil, and by this, from the marine regions, oil extraction could become much more easier. What are sprites and breakthrough starshot? So breakthrough starshot is basically an initiative of proof of concept fleet of light sail spacecraft, and when we talk about sprite, these are small spacecrafts that we talk in general. So both of these terminologies themselves are important, and these were announced by Yuri Miller and Stephen Hawkins. Stephen Hawkins is very, very important. We have talked about Stephen Hawkins in our part 1 on the expected classes, so just go back and refer that. Then you have the ocean observation systems. Now these ocean observation systems talk about the various temporal and the spatial parameters that have been taken into account. The only things they do not include are the tide gauge and the coastal radar. So those are the two things that are not included in this monitoring. and therefore are important. Now Mars rovers is the Opportunity rovers that we talk about, has founded new rocks and has found a new ancient lake in the region of Mars. It is very close to the Perseverance Valley that has been found on the inner slope of the rim. The next important discovery is, the idea is government is planning to move to electric vehicles by 2030. So, electric vehicles, when we say we are moving towards a cleaner fuel, a cleaner technology and a greener environment. So, idea is move towards hybrid products and not only hybrid cars but electric vehicles. So, we aim to touch around 10 million units by 2026, which could be 20% of the electric vehicles capacity that could be brought about. What is SOHUM is very important. The School of International Biodesign developed it, and it's a very low cost hearing device which is mainly meant for the newborns, and it is minimal invasive and can reduce the hearing loss damage. That's important. The next is, in Switzerland, a 3D printed soft silicon heart has been developed, and that would have a functioning very similar to the original heart, and therefore it's important. The next is SpaceX. We have already talked about in our part 1 in detail. So, Falcon Heavy rocket has been launched, and Falcon Heavy is basically capable of has a force of nearly 18 747 jetliners. So, it's really important. And the CEO of SpaceX is Elon Musk. Again, a very simple question that could be asked. Note that the question and aims from the GK section are very direct. So, if you have good command over the current affairs, the current happenings, this could become a really scoring section even if you do not score that good in your physics chemistry section. The next is gold and icon. Now these are two of the efforts that have been done by NASA to explore the ionosphere. When we say ionosphere, it includes the layers above stratosphere, parts of mesosphere and certain parts of exosphere. Now two missions have been released. The first is ICON and other is GOLD. ICON is basically low Earth orbit, which is close-up cameras, and GOLD would be a kind of geostationary satellite, mainly in the western hemisphere that would be seen. What is Pratyush? Very important. It is the first petaflop fastest supercomputer of India that has been developed. Now when we say petaflop, that means it's a million billion floating point operations per second that could be done, and it has two machines, one at Pune, other at Noida. So it's very important, and it has been used now for forecastings. The next is, so far we said that the ancestors originated from Africa during a certain point, but the recent jawbones that have been found in the Misli caves in Israel show that these ancestors migrated much before, or had a much before existence, or they left Africa much before than it was thought. Similar evidences have also been found in the regions of Sumatra. So these two are really kind of disputing the origin of the human civilization. The next is CancerSeek. It's a very important blood test that can now detect 8 different types of cancers that could be prevalent, and therefore it's important, and it's merely by the means of blood tests that you can detect the cancer. The next is super blue moon. Now when we talked about super blue moon, it happened on 31st January. There were 3 things in sequence. It was nearly 14% brighter than the usual moon. It was the last in the trilogy of supermoon, and it was known as the second full moon of the month, and therefore it was also known as blue moon, and this happens on an average every 2.5 years. So those were some of the key aspects of the supermoon, a giant size moon that was seen. PETN, very important. It was recently found in the UP assembly. Now PETN is erythritol tetranitrate. Now this is a kind of colorless crystals that could be found. So it could be lying anywhere close to a kind of electric equipment or in a kind of sealed container anywhere nearby. So what happens is, this is basically, since it's colorless, it's very hard to identify, and it's highly it can pass all the kind of security check, and it can be used as a dangerous explosive. So very important to understand this. the name itself, the PETN, and why it is used is again important. The next is Amazon asked for drone technology patent in India. So drone technology is the technology by which robots could be used to deliver the products to their households, and Amazon is asking for that patent trademark in India. The next is biofuel, which has been developed from soil to soil, is a kind of cheaper fuel. It's less pollution, causes less pollution, and is mainly made up of 50% hemicellulose. So that's again important. So there has been a new technology to manufacture this, and which has been developed by IIT Kharagpur. Now all the handouts for what we are discussing today would be available at Exam-Race Current Affairs section. So for details you can go there. Very important development, the first photovoltaic road was built in France. The second one has been built in the East Shandong region in China. So only 2 experiments have been done so far in case of photovoltaic roads, and therefore are important, the countries which have adopted it. Again, the coal, the origin of coal. We say the quality or the amount of ash determines the quality of the coal. So Indian coal usually has higher amount of ash, around 20 to 45%. However, the imported coal has only 10 to 20%. And we say because of the higher amount of ash, the origin of the coal in India was attributed to drift theory, and that's what is important, the amount of ash and why it's important. First digital online oncology tutorial. So oncology deals with the study of cancer, and this was conducted by Tata Memorial Center in India. So which body conducted it is again important, so it would be Tata Memorial. The next is high altitude cloud observatory has been set up close to Munnar in Kerala. So this could be again a direct question, where it has been established. It is mainly for the weather prediction. A very important discovery, a small new planet has been discovered in Milky Way, and that would be named after an Indian girl, Sahiti Pingali, and she basically developed an integrated mobile phone app for lake monitoring and talking about a pollution free environment. So that's again important. The next is Chinese remote sensing satellite Yagong 30 project was successfully launched, and it was the third in the series of Yagong 30 project. It's again important, and the developments made by China are important. Some of the sections from space technology are important. Space usually is not asked a lot. Major developments that are asked are related to the developments in the field of biology, and therefore you should have a very good command on those. What is mankin? Mankin basically is a golden crowned species which is considered as the first hybrid bird seen in the Amazon rainforest. It is known for its yellow feathers, and therefore it's important. The next is, there have been 2 new exoplanets that have been discovered. Those are Kepler 90I and 80G. Now there could be confusing choices. It could be 90G, 80I and so on. So be sure that you remember it correctly. So it's Kepler 90I and Kepler 80G. These 2 exoplanets have been discovered again by artificial intelligence. So we have seen a second application of artificial intelligence here. The first was for Alzheimer's, and the second is for the discovery of the exoplanet, and it's for the first time that exoplanet discovery required artificial intelligence, and which has been seen here. The next is the next cert has been launched, and this is launched by the National Informatics Center in India. The idea is to predict the cyber attacks in India, and therefore it's again important. Merit app, merit order stack and e-bidding portals for utilization of domestic coal are all the apps that have been related to electricity generation for rejuvenation of income and bringing in more transparency, and therefore the name of the apps themselves are important. Excitonium we have already talked about in the last class as well. Very important. Physicists from University of Illinois discovered those, and this is a new form of matter that has been discovered. The idea was first coined by Bert Halperin. So the name of the person who first coined the idea of excitonium is again very important. The next is Hunga Tonga. Hunga Tonga is basically one of the underwater volcanic eruptions that took place in the island of Tonga, When it initially erupted, it was considered that it will wipe off or it will subside down again in few hours or few days, but now the studies have shown that it could remain for a period of 30 years or more, and it gives an idea or the glimpses of the life on Mars, and therefore it's a unique system in itself. The next is India joined a 5G ecosystem conference, and this was the first ever mobile conference that was held for mobile operations. Indian LEGO program is again important, and the Nobel Physicist prizes that have been given for 2017. Some of the contributors from India, the organizations that have contributed are listed here, which would be available in the handout, so just remember those. And LEGO is funded by two organizations. First is the Department of Atomic Energy and the Department of Science and Technology. That again becomes very, very important. What is Bhagshali manuscript? Bhagshali manuscript is an ancient Indian text, and it reveals that what we believe to be the origin of zero has been 500 years prior to that. So, zero originated much before what we actually thought about, and therefore Bhagshali manuscript is important. The next is biosensors. Now, these biosensors can detect the kidney disorders. So, how it is done? With a single drop of urine, the pH and the urea concentration could be measured using the biosensors, and biosensors are basically biological responses that are done to an electric signal, and therefore are important. We are also working on the deep ocean technology to harness the ocean resources. So, polymetallic nodules is one of the examples to harness it. The next is the Breakthrough Listen project, which detected 15 fast radio bursts which have come from a dwarf galaxy 3 million light years ago, is an important discovery that has been done, and this was detected by Green Bank telescope. So, the telescope is again important. There have been off and on cases where there were questions on Hubble telescope and the various telescopes and their applications. So, here it is the Green Bank telescope in West Virginia, and therefore it is important. The next is, under the region of Antarctica, we have discovered one of the largest volcanic regions. The most important active volcano is the Mount Erebus, which lies on the Ross Ice Shelf, and close to that area in the West Antarctica you have the largest volcanic region that has been discovered. It's again very, very important discovery. Now you have the CRISPR-Cas9 genome editing technology that has been used to alter the human embryo. There had been initially various moral issues related to it, but later it was considered because it is believed that it could help in diagnosing the inherited diseases or the infective DNAs that could be transmitted from the parent to the next generation. The next is distribution of methane hydrate. Now, China is one of the countries which basically produced natural gas from methane hydrate in the South China Sea, and this has been a very important discovery for the production. The next is nanotechnology based drug delivery system that has been developed by all women India team in IIT Delhi, and this platform basically would have would basically boost the efficacy of the antibiotics at the smaller level or a cellular level, and can kill E. coli and Salmonella typhi, which are some of the bacteria which are commonly seen. The next is IISc, that's the Indian Institute of Science Bangalore, has developed a highly sensitive low cost carbon monoxide sensor. Now, this came in the wake of the Delhi smog that took place. We have a whole lecture on Delhi smog and Lancet Commission. That's again very, very important for your exam. So, this carbon monoxide is basically colorless, odorless, but it is highly poisonous or harms the individual and is considered as one of the major pollutants. So, this has been a kind of breakthrough achievement where you could censor the carbon monoxide levels in the home. The next is bionic leaf that has been discovered. Now, here what can happen is the bacteria can convert the solar energy into a liquid fuel, and this works on the principle by which you have an artificial leaf and you use a catalyze, which is mainly to develop or convert the carbon dioxide and hydrogen into a liquid fuel, and this liquid fuel would be isopropanol. So, the name of the liquid fuel in which it would be converted is again important, which is isopropanol. The next is the 4 bacterial stains have been found, and these 4 bacterial stains can remove sulfur from the fossil fuels, and the name of the 4 strains are important, which would be available in the handouts. You need to remember those. The next is students from IIT Roorkee have talked about 2 potent molecules, which is PEP1 and PEP2, and they basically have the inhibitory activity to treat chikungunya disease. Now chikungunya is caused by mosquito bite, and so far there has been no treatment for chikungunya that has been given, and this is for the first time that this has been discovered. One of the important discoveries that has been done is, so far the contact lens were not able to adjust to the brightness level when exposed to a bright light. The new contact lens that have been developed by AIIMs contact lens will have a transient light intelligent technology, and it would be able to adjust the eyeballs based on the bright light that is coming in. The next is, the Indian mosquitoes, mainly the dengue and the chikungunya viruses, are now susceptible to the Zika virus. This has been discovered by National Institute of Virology in India. The next is, first India based 5G lab has been established in IIT Delhi, and this has been done by Bharati School of Telecommunication Technology and Management. Important to note, it has been established in IIT Delhi, first of its kind, but it has not been done by IIT itself, it is done by Bharati School of Telecommunication. So this is important, and it would include MIMO lab, that is multiple input multiple output lab. And this is for the first time any campus would have a 5G wireless technology, which is based on 3rd generation partnership project. The next is, the first microfactory for manufacturing of e-waste has been developed, and Indian origin Veena Sehjwal has launched this microfactory, and it's an important step so far. NASA has basically talked about the first flight to Sun in July 2018. That would again be a breakthrough discovery, because so far discovering about Sun has been only from the Earth, and this time there would be a kind of good results that could be brought around. RH-300 is one of the sounding rockets that has been launched for the atmospheric study and is important. Oxytocin has been misused in the livestock industry, and it basically decreases the life of the milch animals and causes hormonal imbalance. Oxytocin is therefore important. The applications of oxytocin are also important and has been asked in numerous examinations. The next is Kepler-2 telescope. So we talked about the West Virginia Green Bank telescope, and now you have the Kepler-2 telescope. It basically discovered a Earth-sized planet which was known as K229b, which orbits a dwarf star, and this has been obtained or checked out by Doppler spectroscopy technique, and therefore it's important. The next is fluorimeter. Very important question. The name is fluorimeter. Many of you would be confused with fluoride, but this fluorimeter is used to detect the traces of uranium and not fluoride. So this fluorimeter would detect the traces of uranium from 0.1 parts per billion to 100 parts per billion that could be present there. So that's again important. Then you have Marshall Island. It would be the first island to launch a first digital ledger tender that could be given, and it would recognize basically cryptocurrencies as its legal tender, and this would be for the first time. Marshall Island is one of the small islands that is seen in the Pacific Ocean and is part of the Oceania. So that's again important. Thanks to Sangha, we would definitely bring in more videos for AIIMS. The next is Balong 5G01 chipset. Now this is the world's first 5G chipset that has been brought, and who brought it? Huawei Technologies brought it. That's a Chinese firm, and that's again important. The next is the Ayush drug has been developed by the Central Council for Research in Ayurvedic Sciences, and this drug has been coded as Ayush QOL2C, and it helps to improve the life of cancer patients, mainly those suffering from lung cancer. So that's again important. The next is groundwater arsenic report has been given. Arsenic is considered as one of the major pollutants in India, mainly in the regions of West Bengal and parts of Bihar, where arsenic issues are more prominent in water. So India-UK joint team has won the Newton Bhabha fund for the project that is done for detection of arsenic and providing the preventive measures for arsenic pollution in this region. SAPOSHI is very important. What is SAPOSHI? It's basically a DDoS, which is distributed denial of service attack. Besides SAPOSHI, there are other two which are known as Reaper and Miria. So all the three names are very important. Make sure you remember those. So these are basically the DDoS, that is distributed denial of service attacks, that are important. The next is, you have a thermoelectric compound that has been discovered which shows poor thermal conductivity but good electrical conductivity, and it is in the name of silver copper telluride. So it is written as AgCuTe. So again it's important. What is silver copper telluride? That could be a direct question, and it is developed as a thermoelectric compound which shows high level of thermoelectric performance. The next is, for the first time, China has done an experiment where rocket technology would be used to create an artificial heart, and therefore it's an important experiment that has been done. It has been done by China Academy of Launch Vehicle along with TEDA International Hospital in Tianjin. So the name of the hospital which is collaborated for this is again important. So it's TEDA International in Tianjin. The next is, a supercritical carbon dioxide test loop facility has been developed by Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru again, and this is the first loop technology which would be coupled with solar heat resources in the world, and therefore it's very important to know. The next is Saras, which is a light transport aircraft, has completed its second test flight, and it's important. It is part of the Indian Air Force. Melacidins, very important. This is a new class of antibiotics that has been discovered. Now this antibiotic is found from the microorganisms which are living in the soil and the dirt, and therefore it's important. The next is, for the first time human eggs have been used to grow to full maturity in laboratory, and this has been done by a joint efforts of scientists from Britain and America. The next is, 3 parent babies have been developed through MRT technology, which is mitochondrial donation therapy, which is also known as MRT therapy, and this has been done by Britain's Human Fertilization Embryology Authority, who has allowed the doctors to do so. Now what would be the idea for this? The idea is, some of the most incurable diseases which transfer from mother to offspring could be cured by using this technology. The next is MIHIR, again very important. It is a high speed supercomputing facility that has been used mainly for weather forecastings again. So the previous one we had already talked about weather forecasting, the Pratyush. Now you have MIHIR, which again for the weather forecasting that has been used. The next is, NASA has been interested in the Indian made thermal spray coating technology that has been developed. Now this technology has been developed by Dr. Satish Taylor from Rajasthan, and he is basically working in Jodhpur Meteorological Equipments Company Limited. So this technology is called as a control segment of yttrium stabilized zirconia, which is known as YSZ plasma sprayed coating technology, and the name itself is very important. The next is Rotavac. This is the first Indian vaccine to pass a WTO test, and since it has passed the WTO test, now this vaccine can be sold internationally in the South America and the African regions as well. The MIT scientists have created a plant that can grow in dark, and this is one of the novel techniques that has been done. SAM, very interesting. Now this has been a name given to one of the robots that have been prepared, which is basically a politician. So it's again an artificial intelligence that has been applied. We have already talked about 2 cases of artificial intelligence before. One was for Alzheimer's, the other was for the discovery of exoplanet, and the third one here is for the politician that has been created with the name SAM. This has been created by Nick Gerritsen, and it's again important. The next is Samba Masuri. Samba Masuri is a low index, the low glycemic index rice. Now what is the benefit of low glycemic index rice? This rice can be used even by the diabetes patient, and it has a very low glycemic index, and therefore it has been developed by the Indian Institute of Rice Research and has been widely popular recently. The next is the new virus that is linked to Kala Azar has been discovered. It is known as Leptosomonas sayumori, and this can basically act as a hosting virus called as Lepsi NLV1. So again, the names and the terms are important here. Echinothosaurus was the first marine reptile that was extinct from the region of Kutch in Gujarat, and it has been for the first time discovered in this region, and therefore its discovery in India is again important. There have been the development of organic near infrared filters by the National Institute for Interdisciplinary Science and Technology that has been done, and this has been done by mixing organogel with transparent polymer. So the name of the polymer again is important, and it's a kind of direct question that could be asked. CARB-X, very important. It's the world's first negative emission carbon capture plant that started its operation in Iceland, and it basically is a kind of lock away carbon dioxide project where you are trying to lock down the carbon dioxide by reacting it with the rocks, which are mainly basaltic in nature. The project is started in 2007. Then you have the world's largest combustion research engine that has been inaugurated in IIT Madras. That's again important and a kind of direct question. Three persons who won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry. So Nobel Prize for Physics, Chemistry and Physiology, all three of those are very important. Who won those prizes, the name of the scholars and the scientists are important, and for what field they won. So for chemistry they developed a cryo-electron microscopy. So that's important. The next is Sibir. The one that we talked about few minutes back was Mihir, that was for the weather forecasting. Now this Sibir is one of the Russian launched ship, and basically it's a nuclear powered icebreaker ship that has been launched under the project 22220, and it's mainly in the region of St. Petersburg where it would be launched. The first one was Arctica. This is the second one, which is Sibir, and the third one, the third icebreaker is Ural. So three of the icebreaker ships that have been launched are important. Then you have Nobel Prize winners in the field of physics, and it's mainly for the discovery of gravitational waves. We have talked about gravitational waves in our last class. Then you have the Nobel Prize in Physiology, so three scientists, and the theme was basically discovering the molecular mechanisms to control the circadian rhythm. So that's again very important. The next is cheap and clean fuel from the air. Now this has been done by the scientists from Cardiff University, UK, and methanol is one of the important chemicals that has been used as a fuel. The next is XFEL. Now this is one of the world's biggest and most powerful X-ray laser gun that has been unveiled in Germany, Hamburg. So that's again important discovery that has taken place. We have the Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services that have inaugurated 3 forecasting centers, one in Comoros, the other in Madagascar and the third in Mozambique. So the 3 areas where it has been established is important, and the headquarters lie in Hyderabad. What is brainwave, project brainwave? So that could be again a direct question. Now some of the students might get confused that it's related directly to brain, but it is basically a kind of real-time artificial intelligence again, which helps in a kind of learning or promotes deep learning. So this is a kind of development done by Microsoft and is important. The world's smallest surgical robot that has been developed is by United Kingdom, and it is known as Vercius. It's a kind of low cost technology that has been used to develop this, and therefore it's important. The next is turmeric is used to treat cancer in children. That has been a part of one of the recent studies that has taken place. So there could be a direct question on which of the following household things can be used for cure of cancer as per one of the recent studies. So turmeric could be a correct answer. Now this is becoming very important considering the applications of Ayush in the recent days. So with this we cover the major topics that we have talked about for AIIMS GK. In the first class we talked about some of the topics from the past papers and some other important topics. a kind of summarization of those topics on artificial intelligence, Professor Yashpal, Stephen Hawking, then you have the 3 Nobel Prizes in physics, chemistry and physiology. All these are important. Besides that, the developments that have taken place, like the cloning of monkey, the developments related to medical sciences, Mihir, Sibir, the fast computer Pratyush, the supercomputer. So those are some of the important topics that you need to remember. Do subscribe to the channel. We will bring in more important topics for you. Have a very good day ahead.